Hi, welcome to Preps Plus Podcast, episode 12, brought to you by Sterling Auto Group. We're here today with former Kelso girls basketball coach Lacey DeWeert, along with Preps reporter Jason Leskew. I'm Josh Hart, sports editor here at the Daily News. I want to start with the recent resignation from Kelso girls basketball. How tough was that for you to make, and give us a little bit why that decision was made?
That was an incredibly hard decision to make. It wasn't one that I had anticipated making. So it was something that when some resignations happened at the district office, some positions opened up. And so some people at the district office came down and offered me a job. And it was one of those deals where whoever took the job at the district office would have a direct impact with what we're trying to build at Kelso High School. So I wanted to be a part of that. I didn't want to see what we've been doing go away. And they made the offer to stay another year. That was offered to me. And I thought about it, but I needed to get both feet in the same place. And so I figured if I was going to make the move to the district office, I needed to let go of this part. And it was a good time to do it. It would make everything very clean versus taking a farewell tour next year.
You were there for 12 years as head coach, I think, and then a little bit longer as an assistant coach.
Yep.
What are you going to remember most about your time at Kelso girls basketball?
That's a great question. I think it's kids. I think it's individual kids I'll probably remember the most. We have so many great kids that come through our school. And what's unique about Kelso is we're a one high school town. Mm-hmm. And so we meet kids when they're kindergartners. So we have our youth camp next week, and we have a K-1-2 camp. So we meet those kids when they're little, knowing that they're going to come to us when they hit ninth grade. And so you make those relationships with kids. And so you have kids that have gone through, that have gone on to do incredible things, kids that have surprised the heck out of us. And it's just been such a cool part to be a part of so many people's lives.
Kelso girls basketball is in a very good place right now, it seems, especially with what you guys were able to achieve this past season with such a young group. What can this group do in the next couple of years?
Well, it'll be a matter of we have to get some balance in our lineup. So right now we're very guard dominant. We've got kids like Alexis Clevin, Jordan Dole, Turner Joy, Capri Franzen, Tally Connors. They're guards, and we're really needing some inside presence. So last year, Kylie Gibbs did amazingly well at 5'9" if we stretch her, playing on the post. The first 9 games of the season, she's averaging double-doubles, until people kind of figured out she can play, and then they locked her down. But we got some young kids coming. So next year, we kind of have a transition year. I don't know if those young posts will be ready to go, but we have Maddie Harkins coming up, and we have a couple freshmen that if they put some time in, could see some varsity time next year. Big bodies. That's what we need to compete at the 3A level. We get to that second and third round of regionals, and we just run into these monsters that our kids, as try as they might, cannot control.
Coaches around in any sport have noted the increase that time takes on athletes in whatever sport they play. And of course, this makes being a multi-sport athlete all the much harder. How have you seen prep basketball change over the past decade?
Well, when I started, Ray Bergen, Ray was my high school coach. And so when I came back after college and started coaching with him, the one program that was just dominant at the time in our area was Toledo. Mike Croy had them, and they were fabulous to watch, fun to watch. I'd go watch Toledo games as a fan. And then in talking to Mike and picking his brain, they had a really strong youth program, and their kids always went away in the summer. So when I first started coaching, we ran a 10-game summer league, really casual. We never practiced, just show up and play. And now, fast forward, we are now practicing a couple nights a week after spring break. We bring in some trainers to work with our kids because we can't. But that's 2 nights a week that I was in the gym just supervising. So our kids are going 2 nights a week with a trainer. Then after spring break, we start practicing 4 days a week after school for an hour and a half. And then would later also have games. So the amount of time I think that we're requesting of kids is increasing. And that's competing with things like driver's ed and other sports and family time and graduation parties. So June for a high school athlete is probably the most miserable time of the year because everybody wants a piece of their time.
How tough is it to be a 3-sport athlete nowadays? I mean, what's it take to be, because you're having to basically play 3 sports year round just to be competitive, especially at that 3A level. What is it? You see some kids do it clearly, but how tough is it?
It's funny you say that because I think of our kids that have been 3-sport athletes, and they've been phenomenal students. So I'm thinking of Turner Joy being one of them. You guys know her. And I think of the group that we had graduated a couple of years ago: Jamie Lee Iddings, 3-sport athlete, 4.0 kid; Katie Bruce, 3-sport athlete, 4.0 kid; Lauren Musgrove, 3.0, 4.0 3-sport kid. So I think for the kids that can do it, they have this incredible support at home. I think that's a huge piece of it. I think mom and dad have to be willing to give on some things and support on some things, and bring them dinner in the middle of practice and pick them up early to get them to another practice. I think that it takes a special kid to be able to do that. And I think that if you were coming from a situation where you didn't have that home support to get you places and to afford it, I think it would be really hard. So I think that's a big shift in it. And, kids don't like to tell people no. And so I think they get to that point where if I just tell them no once, they'll go away and I'll just focus on the sport. But I had a conversation with a kid today on the fence about, do I play basketball next year or not? And I'm like, why wouldn't you? Why wouldn't you? No. And then they're talking about all the other things they do in the winter to get ready for soccer. And I'm like, man, I didn't remember being 14 years old so complicated, right? I just remember going and playing when the ball was in season and then moving on to the next sport. But that's not the game anymore. I mean, it's totally changed for every athlete in every sport.
Our spring magazine cover story this year is on Kelso's success across the board, both athletically and academically. Jason, what you talked to several of the athletes and coaches, what has Kelso done so well to be able to have the success they've had, in the classroom and on the field this year?
It seems like this, and chip in any time. It seems like there's some unity with faculty that kind of trickles down into the classroom and kind of has really developed a want to do well in the classroom as well as on the court, on the mat, diamond, whatever sport we're talking about there. But 5 academic state champions in 2 seasons between not 2 years, 2 seasons between winter and fall. I mean, and that's if you take the next 2. I don't know if you've looked at this, but if you take the next 2 for those 2 seasons, next 2 schools, and combine those, that you get 5. So, and I believe one of those is a private school.
Yeah.
So.
I think, and again, I think of those kids. I think of like Ryan McGee, who was an academic state champ for wrestling, multiple AP classes, high-level math, wants to be an engineer, going to the University of Washington. I think we've got some high-performing kids. And in reference to our faculty, I think they're student athletes. I don't see, back in the old days, the idea of dumb jocks and, cutting kids' breaks. Our staff does not do that at all. And so those kids, when they are challenged and they have to balance, gosh, I have to leave class early to go to a cross-country meet or go to a baseball game. Those teachers work with them, but there's no, let off the accelerator in terms of what they're expected to do. And we're always giving the kids a message, this is to get you ready for the next level. High school isn't where it ends. So those of you that are wanting to be college athletes, this is life.
Right.
But those kids are, again, they're just such special athletes. I think of, I think of that fall cross-country team. Kaylor Kirk is one of those kids. Again, multiple AP kid, 2-sport athlete, cross-country and track. Played basketball for us for a year, but really wanted to focus in on cross-country and track, which is great. I mean, that's where she's finding success. But the athlete part that never outweighs the student part in our building. And so we just don't see any designation between it. Our kids take a lot of pride in being able to wear that scholar athlete patch on their jacket. That's the one thing, if that gets messed up at the banquet, mom and dad are up there letting me know that this got messed up at the banquet, and we take care of it. So it's nice to see that our athletes and our faculty and our parents expect that of our kids, that they're capable of it, and nobody gives them an excuse not to do it.
Right. It also seems at times like that the athlete part starts to take over the academic part in some areas, and I've seen that throughout my life. I'm sure you have a little bit. What's your take on that region of academia at the high school level where sports can sometimes take over?
Yeah, it used to be. I graduated from Kelso, and so I think back in the day, and it used to be that football dominated the fall. I mean, you had the pep assembly every Friday. You knew who your football players were. And I think the culture of high school has shifted. Okay. I really, really do. And I think every one of our faculty members will tell you that high school kids in general aren't that into sports as we were 20 years ago, where that was, Friday night everybody was going to the football game. You don't see that anymore.
Okay.
And so it's a very focused effort on behalf of our staff to actually get our student body involved in that stuff. It's an interesting shift, and we talk about it every spring because by the time spring sports hit, where we have an incredibly talented softball team and incredibly talented baseball and track, our kids are tired.
Right.
You know, our student body's tired. They're like, yeah, I had a baseball game, but you know, they're going home to do whatever. And you're seeing that drop off in just that, I wouldn't say support, but it's not the focus of school anymore. I mean, Kelso is not a sports center school anymore. I feel confident in saying that, which is incredibly weird because that's not the way it used to be at all.
Right. Not that long ago, there was, 10,000 people I've heard that would show up for a football game.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
It'd be like a college town atmosphere. And,
yeah, that was always the joke. If you ever wanted to rob a house on Friday night, just wait till home football game. And
Right.
everybody in Kelso was at the stadium, including the police and the firemen and the ambulance. And
Right.
you'd make a heyday of it. But yeah, and that's just, I don't know if that's representative of a more transient community where you don't have 3, 4, 5 generations coming through our high school anymore, where it's new people in town.
Mhm.
I don't know. There's probably a lot of reasons to that, but it has changed. And so those kids, like you said, that are athletes, they don't get any special treatment. I mean, they're expected to perform, and if they don't perform, they hear about it from coaches and teachers, so they're getting double whammy on it. I usually know before my kids knew if they did poorly on a test or not.
Okay.
So I would usually have them come into practice. They'd be like, nope, you need to go back and retake your Spanish quiz. Go see Mr. Coffrin. And they would just be like, oh, and have to walk back out and go do that.
Do the walk of shame.
A little bit of walk of shame. And then their teammates go, where are they going? Well, they have to go back and finish Spanish. And they're like, oh, yeah, Spanish was hard. So
Okay.
it's a different culture for sure.
All right.
I think what's stuck around though is this like pride of being a Highland.
Absolutely.
I've never heard so many athletes like, Russell Wilson ends every conversation with "Go Hawks."
Right.
About half the Kelso athletes I talk with end with "We're Highlanders" or something of that's just what Highlanders do.
Right.
How does that foster within the school of this "We Are Kelso" motto that seems to have kind of embodied everything that speaks to the student athletes, to the 3-sport athletes, everything that seems to have Kelso success written all over it stems from this like 3-word phrase.
Right. I think it starts with the fact that we are one high school town. So on graduation on Saturday, we do this, I don't know what they call it, but all the graduates stand up. And Glenn Gelbrecht, our superintendent, goes, okay, if you came to Kelso in 12th grade, sit down. If you came to Kelso in 11th grade, sit down. And he goes all the way down. And he gets all the way down. If you've been in Kelso your entire high school career, please remain standing. And 2/3 of our kids are still standing. And so the idea that those kids know whether they go to Rose Valley or Catlin or Carroll's, that they're all going to end up at Kelso High School, I think is a pretty powerful message. I feel that with, again, multiple generations of families coming through our high school, it's weird for me to I have kids in my class that I went to school with their parents, and so you see this and to talk to their parents is always really funny because they're like, remember when. So I think that breeds a lot of it. And I think, and I know a lot of it because my phone's blowing up with it today, the fact that athletically we've had such a long consistency with coaches. We just don't turn coaches over. And so you get guys that have been around forever and girls have been around forever. And you get an incredibly strong youth program. John Webb runs our youth football and youth basketball programs. Bobby runs his own youth wrestling programs. We're really close with Kelso softball and Kelso baseball. So I think you have all these coaches that have been around a long time. You have all these people that are really important to make programs run that have been around a long time. And so kids are just raised in that environment that you go to Kelso High School and you say we are Kelso, and that's just what you do. It's a neat thing because it does look a little bit weird from the outside, but once people get in, like new staff members get in, and like, this is the weirdest place because everybody's very loyal. Then they get into it and they realize, okay, this is a really cool place because everybody's very loyal. But from the outside, it does seem a little bit strange.
For most of our readers who don't have a lot of big schools in this area, I don't think they understand quite what most big schools are like, and that's not having a whole lot of multi-sport kids. That's not having your football coach be the C-team baseball coach.
Right.
He doesn't have to go spend his time, helping out the baseball team or the baseball coach helping out the JV. it's really neat to see growing up in, just south of Seattle, when all the big schools, you had your sport, you played it, your coach, you knew who the coach was. He was there for a while, and he was the baseball coach. He didn't
Right.
overlap. It's cool to see not only the coaches overlap within sports, but also a lot of them are teachers, and they're with them in the classrooms, either at the middle school or the high school level. It fosters, from what I've just talked to athletes about, this real just sense of pride. Like Sonny Chim, I got done talking with him about his track and field year, and he said, I want to show you something before you go. And he walks me over to their track and field records, and he is like just beaming with pride about, this is what's come before us. This is what's set the stage for us. Steve Amrine, before the fall football season, showed me the football trophy room. There's just a real sense of pride that you don't often see at large schools. You can see it sometimes when you pack a tiny gym at Kalama or certain things, but it's a very unique thing there at Kelso, and it's been really interesting to watch this year.
Yeah, we talk a lot. I think probably the first thing we always talked about every season was legacy. Like, what do you want your legacy to be? What do you want people to remember about your team? And we have that conversation, and it's fun because we always have our high school kids work our youth camps. But before we go do that, we always talk about, okay, you were at these camps. Who were the kids that you looked up to? And kind of put them back into that place of a camper. And then they'll rattle off, just these wonderful former athletes that we've had. And I said, okay, so how that kid made you feel, that's your job to make the next group feel like that. And you make them feel 10 feet tall. And our kids just totally buy into that. And it's right. It puts their heart in the right place. And so they just every year look forward to youth camp, and because they want to be the next whoever, to replace that. They want to make that memory. And, you think about that idea of knowing these kids all the way through. Well, these kids have known me all the way through. And so my phone today, news got out that I'd made this decision. And so I have parents of youth kids, like 4th, 5th, 6th graders, leaving me voicemails and text messages and emails going, oh my gosh, my kid cried last night, right? Because you weren't going to be there. And so that was like, that I wasn't ready for that, I'll be honest, to realize that it did go down that far. I mean, I know these kids, I know their parents. And so it's a legacy idea within our program, but I would say that for every program. I think all of our programs do some type of youth sport connection, and we expect our athletes to be the coaches. And one, it puts our athletes on the spot to actually know the skill, which is always really fun because they come back and go, they won't shoot with their left hand. Yep, welcome to coaching. And to give those kids that sense of pride, like, yeah, I'm doing this because somebody did this for me. So that's the right place to be when you're a high school athlete.
To recap a little bit of what Kelso's success looked like this year, the football team had one of their best runs in recent memory, getting to the state tournament and nearly winning that GSHL 3A league. A much more competitive GSHL 3A than in past years when you add Mountain View and Bay and just a couple extra teams. I mean, that's a tough league now, rather than being that like 14 where you only had a 6-game schedule type of deal. And then the volleyball team took second in their league. The cross country team had success in winning academic state title as well. The volleyball team had an academic state title. Yeah. Boys and girls basketball. Boys basketball had one of their best runs in recent memory. Girls basketball looks like they're really set up for the future. And the wrestling team had a second place finish at state, including state champion Christian Friend, a couple runner-ups. Girls wrestling teams, academic state champs. The softball team making it to state. Just a lot of success. Track and field also had a ton of school records set this year, historical seasons. Just really one of the best runs I've seen from a school where it seems like every week a coach is calling, oh, this is school record. This is the best since 2005. Really cool to see. Jason, you spent a lot of time with the softball team this year. You weren't on last week's podcast to kind of recap the season with us. So tell us a little bit about what you saw from Kelso softball this year as they made their way to the state tournament.
I saw a really young group, actually, one that had a couple key players that were only juniors, another couple, he had a catcher, a pitcher outfielder who was a freshman.
Capri Francis.
Capri, right, who looks just like the future star of Kelso softball for sure. And really there was only 4 seniors on that entire team of about 20, and everybody contributed. Even if you weren't on the diamond, you were out getting kids warmed up before the inning started defensively. A lot of depth in all areas, and kind of like we were talking about just a second ago, like you and Josh were mentioning, where there's that really tight family type atmosphere within the team. And when they lost the chance to be a state champion, and some of them took it harder than others. I know Sadie Harris, for example, she probably, and I was talking with her dad, she was saying, she used to take a fly out tough, like that would break her heart. And so, and he was telling me how she's gotten better over the last couple of years. But, you could tell how tight they were in that tough moment where everybody was down, and then one person picked another up, and then that person picked another up. And they kind of work things out that way, because, for a student athlete, losing your chance at a state title is about as low as you can get emotionally, right?
And got to turn around and play a couple hours later.
And then they got to play, not even a couple hours later. I think it was about 45 minutes later they played another game. So, that was a moment that really, you remember when you see it. So.
You talked about the heartbreak of, missing out on a chance at a state title, but you talked with Riley and Turner, and reading your story, it seemed like they really took a lot of excitement in winning an academic state title.
Right.
Explain what they were talking about when they showed genuine excitement to win something that it's not like you're taught at a young age, like state titles are great. Right. You're not like, as a 5th grader going like, my dream one day is to win an academic state title.
You're really great.
It did seem that they showed that genuine excitement to do so. What do you see from talking to them?
They did. I mean, Riley knew that the wrestling team had done well. And then when I told him, well, there was actually 5, he wasn't aware of that. They had 5, and he was just kind of like, oh, all right, holy cow, and he was really happy about that. And it kind of blew his mind for a couple of minutes. He was kind of like, wait, we had 5? And so, that they take pride in it. You can hear it in their voice when they talk about it, even over the phone. You can tell that they're smiling, and really proud of themselves, proud of their peers. So,
we've hit on it a little bit, but this is a question I think I've called you with on like several different stories.
Okay.
And you're always the person I go to ask this question. It's about multi-sport athletes and how important is it to be a multi-sport athlete, no matter how tough it is to do these days. How important is it to just being an athlete and being a successful athlete?
I think for a multi-sport athlete, I think it's important on a lot of levels. One being, there's an incredible amount of sacrifice there. When you're a multi-sport athlete, it means that you are staying up late, and you are going to practice hungry, and you are, working multiple jobs in a sense to be a part of things. And I think that sacrifice is so important for kids. It's not just about you. It's not just about you. You owe it to these other people. And we talk about that a lot with our kids. You owe it to these other people to show up. You owe it to these other people to work out. So I think that's a huge piece of it. I think being a multi-sport athlete is healthy physically. I was thinking about this morning. The first 8 years coaching, I never had an ACL. And now I have it pretty regularly. I mean, I had 2 in 1 year. And I look at the kids who these things are happening to, and they tend to be those one-dimensional athletes. I say one dimension meaning one sport. And when you talk to athletic trainers, the repeated movement, that same movement pattern over and over and over again creates imbalance. So you physically are setting yourself up for injury. The one that Allie had this year, her ACL, Allie is a soccer keeper goalie soccer keeper and plays basketball. That's what she does. And so I think about that. I watched the video 1,000 times, but as a coach, what could we have done different? For us, we've instituted an ACL warm up. I mean, there's all these things we try to do to reduce that. So there's the sacrifice piece of it, there's the physical piece of it, and there's the mental piece of it. It breaks my heart when I hear 15-year-olds tell me, I'm just burned out. So if you've played whatever sport all the way through, by the time you're 15, if you started at 6, that's 9 years. That's more than a high school athlete's career. And I could see you being burned out mentally. And we're seeing that more and more across every sport. I had the same conversation, Steve Amrine, who was there? So it was myself, Jen Hamilton, Steve Amrine. Steve's cousin coaches football down at Ridgefield. And there was another coach in there too. But it was funny because there was 3 of us, 3 sets of coaches independently. And then when we kind of all met up at the end as we were walking out of the restaurant, what were you guys talking about? All of us were talking about the exact same thing, that kids in the spring are burned out, they're tired, their body hurts. And then you ask them what they've been doing. Well, I went right from baseball right into, my regular season baseball team, summer team, and they're just tired. And so it's a struggle to get that balance. And I think emotionally, physically healthy is so important for these young people, and to be able to work with different coaches. I think that's a huge one. You're going to have multiple bosses in your life. And that's why, for our kids, we send them off to get coached by other people because I don't have all the answers. And they need to be able to take information from other people, process it, and put it into play. So I think for kids that just want to focus on one sport, it always blows me away when a 14-year-old says, well, I don't think I'm going to play basketball in college. Okay. I don't ever remember thinking that at 14, that I was having this decision in my head, gosh, what sport do I want to play in college? So I think the focus has really changed from representing your school and representing your town and representing your family to what can I do in college, which if you look at the success rate is so low. Right. So low. It's such an unreasonable expectation to have, but that is the expectation because so much money is involved at this point. So these parents pay a tremendous amount of money for club sports and trainers, and that's always a battle on the high school coaches in because they don't pay us. So all of a sudden we become sometimes lower intellect. And we don't see the talent. And I'm
Is there? Do you have a personal issue with some of that? With I know I've talked with other coaches who kind of do, or some more than others, that sort of thing. But is there kind of an issue with the culture of youth sports, prep sports, and the way things have gone?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, and don't get me wrong, we had Ashley Corral come up this spring. Ashley's awesome. Played at Prairie, played at USC, held the Pac-12 record for the longest time up until the UW gal. Kelsey Plum broke it, right? I mean, held it for threes. And so we work with a lot of trainers, but I think parents really have to be careful, and parents really need to understand why are they doing it. I think the motivation behind that, if you've got a kid that's hungry and that's what they want to do and that's all their kid wants to do, that's one thing. But if you're looking at it as an investment and this is what they have to do to get ahead, I've had parents say that to me more than one time where their trainer said they're varsity level athlete. And they probably wanted you to book another session right when they got done too. Right. That's kind of what's going through the back of my head. And so I struggle with that piece of it. I struggle with the motivation of why are you making your kids go? If the kids want to go, that's great. But I think as an adult, we do this with our kids all the time, from the time the season ends till after spring break, we don't go in the gym. I don't want to see you. Go do whatever you're going to do. Go be normal, and then we shut it off when they come back. The last week in June, they'll do 3 days of camp, and then we shut it off. Go on vacation. Go camping. Don't worry about it. If we win a state title, great, right? But that's not why we coach. That's not why. And you tell parents that sometimes, and they're shocked. You don't want to win a state title? No, I do want to win a state title, but the reality of it is, I've got 9 players that are 5'7" or less. Right.
And there's 800 schools in the state, and only going to be 6 state titles.
Yeah, 6 state titles, and so that's just never our motivation. And so that's my issue. And I think high school coaches get a bad rap sometimes because our motivation is different. We want to develop good student athletes. We want to have kids have a positive experience. We want kids to be good teammates and have good sportsmanship. And sometimes people work at it from a different angle.
And look at the list of local collegiate signings. Go onto our Preps Plus blog. We have the full list of anybody who's told us they've committed somewhere. And I bet you about 80%, I haven't counted it up, but probably 80 or 85% of them are multi-sport athletes. You look at Kaylin Shipley out of Kalama, D1 javelin thrower. looking at the 2020 Olympics.
Right.
All-state volleyball, all-state basketball. Just across the board, Parker Essery, got her spot. Peyton Souvenir. You look, Cameron Walker. They're all going to college, and they were all multi-sport athletes. Nick Moore, Colton Johnson. These people all go play multiple sports, and it has not hampered their chance one bit at getting a college scholarship.
No, it doesn't. And again, going back to the conversation I had with the kid today, I got all this, playing on 2 soccer teams in the winter in Portland. And I'm thinking, man, what a commitment.
Right.
But great, if you want to be a soccer player, go do that. But now you're having to choose, and I just don't want to see kids have to choose. I think they should. That's such a small window in your life that when you actually get to do things, once you get out of that window, you're getting jobs and you're in relationships and you're in college, and that part goes away. And I just hate to see them miss out on that. And it's not till they're older that they look back, and I hear it all the time. Kids saying, "I wish I would have. I wish I hadn't stopped. I wish I hadn't quit. I wish I hadn't." And that's what we just tell them. You're going to regret this. Nobody ever regretted playing. I never had anybody go, "Gosh, that was a waste of time." No one's ever said that. But I've had kids in the stands come back at the end of the season and go, "I messed up," and ask, "Can I come back?" Absolutely. One of our kids that did that was Peyton, Garcia, Fromdahl. Yeah, so she went and played at the University of Montana for soccer. So she didn't play her junior year. Did club soccer all the way through, then came back and said, "You know what, I want to play." And played, and was a great role play for us. It was very transparent. Okay, this is where you're at. I mean, you didn't play a full year, so had a blast. Was like one of our glue kids, and tells me at the end of the season, my soccer coach can tell that I'm playing basketball because my angles on the field have improved.
Right.
And so there's so much translation between sports. If kids will do it, they'll get it. And so she even said the same thing. I totally understand how to use sidelines and half court because it translates to soccer so well. So kids like that are rare these days. They're rare, and so I appreciate those kids that do have the courage to come back and realize they didn't make a mistake.
I remember up in Bellingham, there was a girl who played soccer for Squalicum her freshman and sophomore years, and then her club coach, she was commuting down to Redmond every day to play for the premier soccer team of the state, Crossfire, and her club coach said, I don't want you to be late at practice. You gotta quit your soccer team. And she came back for her senior year, and I asked why, clearly the club soccer is going to give you the most. And she said there's something about high school sports that it's not the competition level that is at the same as a club sport. It's just this certain bond that you get playing high school sports and playing instead of for yourself or to get, you're recognized by a college coach. You're playing for that team on your back. So.
Yeah, absolutely. And I don't want to bash on club soccer, but that's where we've had the most friction is I would never say to one of my kids, if you don't show up, you're off the team. I have a little more compassion than that. But all my club soccer kids say, "Coach, if I don't go, I'm off the team." And my mom already paid $1,200. And it's like, what do you do? I mean, you've got this 15, 16-year-old kid now having to choose. And, that's where the art of how do you massage this with your teammates now? Now your teammates feel like you just got ditched. So I think you're dead on, though, for those kids that do choose, to be a part of high school because, especially in our high school, you've been with these kids all the way through. I mean, there's some lifetime friendships that are always going to be there, and you're playing because you enjoy each other's company. You play because you've been playing together since 4th grade. And I think there's something very pure about that motivation, which I think is disappearing, unfortunately, with high school sports.
Jason, did you want to ask anything?
No.
We will jump right into our trivia time, and the question I had was actually going to be, we answered it like several times throughout, which was how many academic state titles. So I'm going to think of another one off the top of my head here. When was the last time Kelso girls basketball made the state regionals?
Oh, the final state. I see it on the banner because that was the last time. So that I can do this math. 04?
04. Okay. answer it on Facebook, and we will see if Lacey
See if I'm even right.
got it right. We have had coaches wrong
Yeah,
before.
I would be. I could
We've
be
had
right.
we've had coaches wrong about their own personal records and years. As a
Oh
player.
yeah, I could totally see that.
Yeah.
I could totally. You know, I'm probably one of the worst stat people. People ask me the score of the game sometimes. I don't even remember. So
Right.
when you guys are like, "What was the score?" I'm like, "I'm going through the scorebook really fast on the phone trying to make sure I get it
Yeah,
right."
we've had. I've had Jenny O'Neill tell me the last time they made the state volleyball championship was this year, and
Yeah.
I went and checked the WIA site, and I go, "Oh, she must have just been off by a year," and so I tweeted it out. Okay,
Yeah.
this was the correct. Jenny's like, "No, it's wrong, and then through a couple intermediaries, yeah, we were able to figure out that the
That's
WIA
funny.
site was actually correct. I've had Jason Buffum say the last time Woodland basketball went to state was this year and be off. So try to see if Lacey's right. Answer on Facebook for a chance to be shout out on next week's podcast. Last week's winner, which our question was, who did Rainier softball beat for their first state title in 2013? They beat Dayton, and Jaden Crape answered that for us. So she was not on that team, so I don't think that's cheating in any way. She would have been an 8th grader that year. Jaden Crape, good job on answering that. Answer this week's question on Facebook, YouTube, wherever you watch our videos. That's it for us. I want to thank Lacey for coming out, Jason for being here, and we'll see you next week. Oh, and Sterling Auto Group. Can't forget to thank them for sponsoring this week's podcast, and we'll see you next week.